In today's video, we'll be looking at a couple who's getting ready to retire and have saved about $2 million over the course of their career. And they're asking the question, how much can I safely spend in retirement without the risk of outliving my nest egg? In other words, running out of money. After working with hundreds of retirees over the course of my career as a certified financial planner, I can tell you this is the most common and most pressing question that most retirees have. So I felt it would be helpful to share this with you all to help get an understanding of how to answer that question and how we answer it here at our firm, Spark Wealth Advisors. Before we get started, I totally understand that not everyone watching this video will have $2 million saved for their retirement. But with that said, I want to get two main points across with this video. Number one is that the framework that we use to answer this question can be applied to most retirees' unique situation and financial goals and balances. Number two is that traditional retirement spending strategies such as the 4% rule can often lead to underspending and thus regret later in retirement, compared to a more personalized dynamic spending strategy that we'll cover in this video, which allows you to spend more of your hard-earned nest egg earlier in your retirement when you can enjoy it the most. By the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Jake Skellhorn. I'm a certified financial planner and co-owner of Spark Wealth Advisors, where we help people across the country retire with confidence and clarity. Before we dive into the case study here, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I typically post once or twice a week on retirement-related topics, so if you're someone who's getting close to retirement or starting to think about retirement planning, make sure you stay up to date on any future videos to help get the most out of your plan. All right, so here we have our client couple, Jane and John. This couple is made up, unlike other videos where we use actual client examples. This is a theoretical example, but a lot of the financials fit the profile of a lot of people that we work with. So they're both 65 years old. Brief overview of their financial situation here. They have a total net worth of about $2.8 million. That does include their primary residence, which is valued at about $750,000. That is paid off, but it's not obviously money that they can access for income. So we do exclude that, which is where we come up with about $2 million between their bank accounts and investment accounts. So just to break that down a bit further, they have a joint brokerage account or a taxable brokerage account with about $250,000. We have Jane's Roth IRA of about $80,000. John has his Roth IRA with about $150,000, and then they both have their 401ks and IRAs, which is where the bulk of their assets are. Pre-tax accounts with about $600,000 in Jane's account and $800,000 in John's IRA. So they're currently still working. So this is where you see savings and transfers. This is their savings that they're putting into their 401k and Roth IRAs. So won't be relevant when they retire, but something that they're currently doing. Current income, again, this will stop at retirement, but they're both earning $110,000 per year. And then their expenses, their desired retirement expenses are about $10,000 per month. So $120,000 a year is what they would like to spend in retirement. Like some retirees, they might be worried that they are not able to spend this consistently because based on things like the 4% rule, this would be much more than what their portfolio would support long term. But this also is going to factor in Social Security payments as well that we'll look at in just a moment. So, and that's their retirement goal. Retire next year, spend about $10,000 per month if possible. And this is what they're working with to support that. So then just a couple other things as far as timeline is concerned. Again, retirement next year. They plan to retire. They plan to take Social Security at full retirement age, which would be in 2026. And then their RMDs will start in 2032 for both of them, which is useful to know for tax planning purposes, to see if Roth conversions might make sense to kind of lower the taxes associated with those RMDs. Anyway, this software we're using today is called IncomeLab. It's a software that I like to use for people that are getting ready to retire in the next year or already retired. The focus of this is really to show you your spending capacity based on your assets, your Social Security income, and your life expectancy, things like that. So it's a little bit different than Right Capital, which is another software that I use in most of my other videos. It's more comprehensive, more looks at the big picture for projecting out, when you can retire. But again, this one, IncomeLab, is focused mainly on retirement spending. So I felt it was more appropriate to use in this video. Now, one of the things with IncomeLab is that it focuses on a Guardrails approach for retirement spending, which if you're not familiar, Guardrails is essentially a dynamic spending strategy, which means you can adjust your spending based on the performance of your portfolio and thus the balance in your accounts. So the purpose of Guardrails is more or less to spend more than traditional retirement rules suggest, such as the 4% rule. So if you're not familiar, the 4% rule often results in ending your life with a lot more money than you even started with in retirement, which obviously can lead to regret and underspending in your earlier years when you can use it the most, or when you can enjoy it the most, I should say. So Guardrails essentially aims to spend more than 4% of your portfolio each year by setting rules for when you can increase your spending and when you should decrease your spending, again, based on market performance. Its increases and decreases are not frequent, so it's not something that you can expect to adjust on a month-to-month basis, but it is something that is a possibility for when the markets behave in certain ways. The Guardrails approach used in IncomeLab sets parameters for when you are able to increase or have to decrease your spending based on the risk of your portfolio potentially running out. So for example, you'll see in just a moment, if you experience a series of positive returns as you enter retirement and your portfolio is actually growing even though you're withdrawing money, Guardrails approach in this situation would allow you to spend more money or increase your monthly spending. Whereas if the market drops significantly, you will have to cut back spending only slightly and probably temporarily to avoid withdrawing from your portfolio at a rate that will cause you to run out of money. So also, just a couple assumptions to be aware of here that the software is using. So they're invested in about a 60-40 portfolio, so 60% stocks, 40% bonds. The average expected return is about 5.9% for this portfolio. So that is what the software is assuming for these projections and these different scenarios that are going to play out. So let's take a look at their Guardrails plan just to show you exactly what I mean. So based on their current balance, which is, again, just under $2 million between all of their accounts, they can afford to spend just under $15,000 per month. So again, remember their goal was $10,000. Using a Guardrails approach, they can actually afford to spend closer to $15,000 per month. And this is before taxes, so we can change that to show net of taxes. But about $13,500 is what they actually have the capacity to spend without a huge risk of running out of money. Now, this will be their starting amount. So as you can see, if they hit the upper guardrail or if their balance increases to $2.1 million at any point, then their income would increase to $14,907. So on the contrary, if the market drops significantly and their portfolio dips to $1.48 million, they'll have to cut back spending to $12,900 per month to prevent them from going down a path of, running out of money. So just to dive a bit further into this, we can see that this is their current balance. So it gives you a good visual of what would happen if you hit this upper guardrail and lower guardrails. So I also like how Guardrails can be flexible depending on your specific risk tolerance. So Jane and John are starting at one of the higher guardrail settings here, but let's say that they want maybe a lower starting spending amount, but a lower chance of adjusting that spending. They can reduce it to one of the lower settings here. So they're starting at $14,000, so a bit less than the $14,900 that we had initially, but there's a much lower chance that they will have to cut spending. So if that's something that they're more comfortable with, then I like how this approach allows them to be flexible depending on what they're, again, comfortable with. So, but either way, the Guardrails approach, again, is going to allow them to spend more than the 4% rule would suggest. So we'll also take a look at the cash flows of their plan, since again they're starting retirement but not claiming Social Security right away. We can see here that their initial withdrawals are coming all from portfolio withdrawals. Their initial income, I should say, is coming all from portfolio withdrawals. And then once their Social Security kicks in, it requires less to come out of their portfolio, which again allows that money to last longer. Another feature that I would show John and Jane is the testing their plan. So this is still using a Monte Carlo analysis that's common in other softwares like Right Capital, but it's kind of behind the scenes because the whole issue that most advisors have with Monte Carlo is that it presents your plan as a percentage of success or failure, which no one wants to think that their retirement plan is going to fail. So a better way to look at it would be what percentage of scenarios in that Monte Carlo analysis result in you being able to spend more than your plan, and in this case it's 80%. So again, they're able to spend that $13,500 or so after taxes rather than $10,000. And only 20% of scenarios are they going to have to adjust spending below what their target is. So a good way to visualize, or maybe a better way to approach a Monte Carlo analysis, is to show them, how much more they can spend than planned. Something else I really like to show clients using this software is a stress test of how their income plan would work through various historical scenarios like the Great Depression, stagflation era of the 70s, dot-com bubble, great financial crisis, things like that. So just to use a more recent one, we'll look at the global financial crisis and apply John and Jane's income plan to see what would have happened before, during, and after, if they would have to increase or decrease their spending based on how their portfolio would have done in those times. So let's start with before. So November 2007 was just before the financial crisis. So again, their planned income is about $15,000 up front. When the market dropped, obviously their portfolio would have taken a hit. So they would have hit their lower guardrail, and they would have had to decrease spending down to about $13,700 or so. So about $1,200 that they would have had to adjust downwards temporarily. As the market recovered, they hit their upper guardrail, so they were able to adjust spending back upwards to $15,140. As you can see, the blue line, which is planned income or their target income from the start of their plan, it actually decreases on an inflation adjusted basis over time. This is known as the retirement spending smile. Towards the end of retirement, it will pick back up again. So again, if you look at it on a graph, it kind of looks like a smile. But this is based on a lot of research that shows that retirees actually decrease spending on an inflation adjusted basis as time goes on. So from the beginning of their retirement, their spending actually dips in the next 10 or 15 years or so. And then towards the end of their life, as healthcare costs increase, spending then increases again. So that's why this light blue line slowly decreases with time. But again, they hit their upper guardrail again. So their portfolio essentially bounced back enough to warrant an increase in spending. So they're able to spend upwards of $15,000 again in 2017, well after the financial crisis. So again, today with how the markets have been doing, they also hit another guardrail. So again, their guardrails kind of increase and decrease depending on where they're at with their spending. And if they had retired during the financial crisis, in other words, they had their $2 million or so, again, this is going to be adjusted back to 2008 numbers for inflation. They would have started spending a little bit less, so about $13,862. But obviously, as the market recovered quite significantly from there, their income would increase based on hitting those upper guardrails a few times without really ever decreasing spending. So if they were to retire after the financial crisis was deemed over, again, same kind of result here. They're able to start with a lot more income in the early days of retirement, and it only increases from there as their portfolio, increases basically more than what they're withdrawing. So again, good way to kind of stress test any income plan, gives people peace of mind to show what would have happened or what may happen if history repeats itself in these situations. And another thing I like to show retirees whose goal is to spend, the most amount of money that they can, especially in those early years when they can enjoy it the most, is really the likelihood that they're going to be left over with a lot of money. So as I said in the beginning of this video, the 4% rule often results in you reaching the end of your life with more money than you even started retirement with, which of course, again, can lead to regret and underspending, things like that. So this is still the result of a Monte Carlo simulation, but using this income strategy rather than a 4% rule, you can see that in the best scenario, they're still spending down a significant portion of their beginning $2 million. So in the best scenario, they end their life with $1.3 million. Obviously, that's still a lot of money left on the table that they could have spent, but that's, again, the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, they're still left with $200,000, so a decent cash buffer that they would have left over. But the main one to look at here is the median. So they're left with about $550,000 in the median scenario out of those 1,000 projections. Whereas with the 4% rule, more than 2/3 of simulations have an ending result of more than double what you started retirement with. So if you start retirement with $1 million, there's a 66% chance that you're going to die with $2 million or more by following the 4% rule. So the 66th percentile would fall somewhere in between here, but let's say that's just over $600,000 that you end with. Obviously, that's going to be a lot better than ending with $4 million in this situation. Now, of course, I totally understand some people's goal is to leave a legacy to their kids or to a charity. So that is something that we obviously talk to with clients on an individualized basis, but I just want to avoid underspending and regret here by following this strategy. So I hope this video was helpful in visualizing how much you can afford to spend from your portfolio in retirement, especially as it relates to traditional retirement spending strategies like the 4% rule. If you have any questions on the guardrail strategy in general, be sure to leave a comment below and I'll be happy to get back to you. As always, like this video if you enjoyed it, share it with a friend, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining.